It was the kind of heartbreak no one saw coming. For decades, Debbie Allen and Phylicia Rashad had been the golden image of sisterhood, shining together on red carpets, supporting each other's projects, and standing tall as two of the most respected Black women in the entertainment industry. From the outside, their bond looked unshakable. People called them soulmates. They were praised not just for their talent, but for their strength, elegance, and unbreakable connection. But deep inside, behind the smiles and the interviews, a storm had been brewing. And when Debbie finally spoke up, fans were left speechless. You won't believe how it all started. Debbie Allen, the powerhouse behind shows like Fame and Grey's Anatomy, had always been the more expressive one. Phylicia, graceful and calm, became America's favorite mother as Claire Huxtable on The Cosby Show. Together, they were unstoppable. They grew up in the same home, raised by a poet mother who taught them discipline and grace. Their childhood wasn't easy, but it was filled with dreams. Debbie once said, "We don't just share genes, we share dreams." And for a long time, it seemed like those dreams were bringing them closer with each passing year. Let me tell you, this wasn't a case of jealousy or fame tearing them apart. No, this is where it gets interesting. The shift began quietly. Debbie stopped appearing at events with Phylicia. Their once regular public shout-outs turned into silence. Interviews that used to overflow with loving words started becoming awkward. People noticed, but no one could guess the real reason. That was until Debbie Allen, at the age of 63, decided she couldn't carry the weight anymore. She said the pain had grown too deep, and the silence between her and her sister wasn't just a phase. It was permanent. She had to walk away, and what makes this story different? She didn't walk away in anger. She walked away in pain. The craziest part, the actual turning point, had nothing to do with their careers. It had everything to do with loyalty. When Bill Cosby's legal drama exploded, the world watched closely, especially to see how Phylicia Rashad would respond. And respond she did, defending Cosby publicly, standing by him even after his conviction was overturned. Phylicia's words, especially when she said, "Forget these women," caused outrage across the internet. But more than that, they shocked Debbie Allen. Not because she wanted her sister to join the backlash, but because Debbie had spent her whole life supporting young women, building safe spaces for female dancers, actresses, and creators. She was hurt, not just as a sister, but as a woman who believed in justice. Debbie didn't make statements. She didn't argue publicly. But behind the scenes, friends close to her said she felt blindsided and deeply disappointed. She had always looked up to Phylicia, not just as a sibling, but as a partner in purpose. Now she felt like a line had been crossed. And the worst part, Debbie was going through her own private struggles. She faced a health crisis in 2000, one that she didn't make public, but sources said it was serious. During that time, she needed support, not from fans, not from the media, but from her sister. But Phylicia, according to insiders, didn't show up. No visit, no phone call, just silence. Destiny took an unexpected turn. Debbie, who had always been strong, always been the one to lift others up, finally admitted to a friend, "I love my sister, but I have to protect my peace." That sentence alone told 1,000 stories. For a while, she kept it quiet. She avoided drama, but pain doesn't stay hidden forever. Eventually, during a 2023 interview, Debbie was asked about sisterhood. And instead of the usual praise, she paused, took a breath, and said softly, "Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest." That moment changed everything. The internet exploded. Fans were stunned. Some cried. Others felt betrayed. How could this happen to them? Debbie Allen and Phylicia Rashad were supposed to be forever. But now it seemed like even the strongest bonds could break. The emotion in Debbie's voice, the calm sadness in her words. It wasn't anger. It was exhaustion. She wasn't trying to start a fight, she was simply telling the truth, and that truth hit harder than any headline. The moment Debbie Allen spoke those heartbreaking words in that interview, the silence that had covered their family's pain like a blanket was torn wide open. Fans weren't just shocked, they were desperate to understand how two women, raised together, loved by millions, and once so close, had drifted so far apart. But here's the shocking part. The rift didn't end with the Cosby controversy. That was only the surface. What was really going on behind closed doors was much more personal and painful. After Debbie's quiet confession, the world started asking, was this really just about a difference in public opinion? Or had something been brewing for years that no one dared to speak about? That's when old whispers from family insiders started coming to light. A story began to form, one that pointed to the passing of their beloved mother, Vivian Ayers Allen. She was more than a poet. She was their guide, their anchor, the woman who demanded brilliance from both her daughters. But when she passed, something inside both sisters shifted. What makes the story different is what came next. You see, after their mother's death, the family faced the difficult question of legacy, not just emotionally, but practically. How to handle the family estate, her writings, her influence, her name. Phylicia, ever the traditionalist, wanted to preserve their mother's work quietly, respectfully, without major public exposure. Debbie, on the other hand, had a different vision. She wanted to take their mother's legacy and use it as a tool for change through community arts projects, scholarships, and performances. Two women, same blood, same pain, but completely different approaches. Let me tell you, this is where it gets interesting. According to someone close to the family, Debbie went ahead with her plan. She launched a scholarship in their mother's name, publicly honored her through an artistic program, and began talks about using the family archives to build a community initiative. But she did it without Phylicia's full agreement. To Debbie, it was a tribute. To Phylicia, it felt like a betrayal. The emotional fallout was quiet but heavy. Phylicia never responded publicly, but her silence was louder than any statement. She didn't attend the scholarship launch, she didn't promote it, and fans began noticing that even in moments where the sisters should have been side by side, they were miles apart. One source said Phylicia felt completely dismissed, like her voice didn't matter in decisions about their own mother's memory. And Debbie? She thought she was doing what her mother would have wanted. She believed in action, in using pain to create beauty. But in the process, she may have crossed a line she couldn't uncross. The craziest part? This family disagreement never made the tabloids. There were no public statements, no legal battles, no dramatic TV interviews. It was all happening in silence. An emotional Cold War between two women who once said they would never let anything come between them. And still, the pain kept growing. Behind the scenes, people who loved both sisters tried to step in. One name that kept coming up was Ahmad Rashad, Phylicia's ex-husband and a longtime friend of Debbie. Even after his divorce from Phylicia, he stayed close to both women. He had seen their bond from the inside. And when he heard about the growing tension, he tried to help. He reportedly reached out to both sisters trying to arrange a quiet meeting, not to fix everything at once, but just to remind them of who they were to each other. But destiny, once again, didn't cooperate. Debbie was open to it. She still had love in her heart. But Phylicia wasn't ready. Still deeply hurt, she reportedly told Ahmed that she needed more time and that she didn't want to be pushed into forgiveness. And just like that, the door gently closed again. What makes this even more heartbreaking is that there was no villain here. Just two sisters grieving the same woman in different ways, two women carrying wounds that never healed. And when those wounds went ignored, they grew into walls. After months of silence, after interviews and missed calls and a growing emotional gap, no one expected anything to change. Fans had started accepting that Debbie Allen and Phylicia Rashad might never be the same again. Even close friends had backed away, realizing that some wounds take more than love to heal. But destiny, once again, took an unexpected turn. Just when it seemed like the door between them had been sealed shut, Debbie did something no one could have predicted. And she did it in a way that only Debbie Allen could, through her art. Without saying a word to the press, without announcing it to the world, Debbie began working on a deeply personal stage production. It was small, intimate, and focused on celebrating the lives of Black women in theater. No cameras, no Hollywood flash, just passion, truth, and storytelling. But here's the twist: you won't believe what she included in the program: notes. Tucked away inside the pages, barely noticed at first, was a quiet dedication. It didn't mention any actor. It wasn't for the crew, it was for her sister. In the words, they cut deeper than any headline. To the one who walked beside me through the fire and light, your artistry shaped my soul. Thank you for being my first mirror. No names were mentioned, but everyone knew who she meant. This wasn't just a tribute, it was a whisper from the heart. A message from a sister who was still hurting, but still loving. And when people working behind the scenes saw Debbie tear up during the final rehearsal, they realized just how raw it all still was. Someone asked if she was okay, and she answered with a voice full of memory, "Sometimes you just miss the way things used to be." What makes this story different is that Debbie didn't call the media, she didn't post on Instagram, she didn't beg for attention. Her message was silent, respectful, and heartfelt. And somehow that made it even more powerful. Because days after the performance, something strange happened. Something small, but deeply meaningful. Phylicia Rashad, who had remained silent through it all, posted a throwback photo. No caption, no context, just an old image of her and Debbie in their younger days, arm in arm, smiling like the world was still theirs. Fans noticed instantly. Was it just nostalgia? Or was it a response to Debbie's tribute? This is where it gets interesting. People started talking. The internet buzzed with questions. Were they reconciling? Was this the start of something new? Or was it simply a quiet way of saying, "I see you and I still remember"? To those who had followed their journey, it didn't matter if the photo came with words. The timing alone said enough. These weren't women interested in drama or headlines. They had lived through too much, fought too hard, and sacrificed too deeply for that. This was something else, something softer and maybe more hopeful. But just when it seemed like the story was shifting toward healing, something else resurfaced, a buried detail from their past that no one was prepared for. And this one changed the story all over again. Just when fans started believing that maybe, just maybe, the silence between Debbie Allen and Phylicia Rashad was starting to soften, an unexpected wave from the past came crashing back. This time, it wasn't about interviews or award shows. It was about something far more painful, and it reopened wounds that had never fully healed. An old interview, nearly forgotten, suddenly resurfaced online. In it, an anonymous family insider revealed something that hadn't been publicly discussed before. According to the source, the real root of the sisters' emotional distance wasn't just the Cosby controversy or even the disagreement about their mother's legacy. It was something deeper, a personal betrayal that struck at the very heart of trust. Let me tell you exactly what happened. After their mother's passing, there was not only emotional grief, but also real decisions to be made about her estate, her writings, properties, and legacy. While Phylicia wanted to preserve everything in a traditional, untouched way, Debbie had started moving forward with her own plans. One major decision stood out. Debbie allegedly authorized a major step with their mother's archives, without Phylicia's full knowledge or agreement. That was the moment everything quietly began to unravel. Phylicia felt blindsided. To her, it wasn't just about property or control. It was about respect, about being seen, about being heard. And for a woman who had stood next to her sister through decades of Hollywood storms, it felt like a silent betrayal. And the worst part, Debbie didn't see it that way at all. She believed she was honoring their mother's dream, fueling it with action, passion, and purpose. This wasn't a battle over money, it was a collision of values. One sister focused on preservation, the other focused on progress, and neither could fully see the other's pain. And yet, even after all this, someone still held on to hope. Ahmad Rashad, Phylicia's ex-husband and longtime family friend, quietly stepped in, trying one last time to bring the sisters together. He reached out privately, suggesting a meeting. He wanted them to talk, not to fix everything at once, but to remember the love they once shared. Debbie was willing, but Phylicia, she wasn't ready. She told him she needed time, and that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't ready to forgive what still hurt so deeply. So the meeting never happened. The chance faded away, and those closest to them finally accepted what had become clear. This wasn't something a conversation could solve. The pain ran too deep. The silence wasn't just awkward, it had become part of who they were now. But the story didn't end in bitterness, and that's the craziest part. Because when everyone believed there was no more love left, Debbie made one last move. She directed a small, deeply personal stage production that quietly honored Black women in theater. No headlines, no press tours, just raw, beautiful storytelling. And in that show's program, she wrote a line that told the world what her heart had never stopped feeling. To the one who walked beside me through the fire and light, your artistry shaped my soul. Thank you for being my first mirror. That wasn't just a dedication, it was a silent embrace, a whisper across distance, a final offering of love. And days later, without a word, Phylicia posted that photo. No caption, no statement, just two young sisters in their prime, glowing in a moment where nothing was broken. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe it was memory, or maybe it was her way of saying, I saw it and I remember. In the end, there was no big reunion, no teary hug on camera, no dramatic reconciliation, just two sisters bound by blood, divided by pain, reaching out in the only way they knew how, quietly, respectfully, and with love that never truly disappeared. Because sometimes healing doesn't look like a headline. Sometimes it's just a silent tribute and a photo and a memory that still matters, that